Hello, my friends. It's Ranger Russ at the Meggs Point Nature Center with a special program this evening. We're doing Reptiles of Connecticut. Now, if you've seen my other programs, I've done a lot of these reptiles, probably all of them by now, but in an individual way. This time, we're going to compare and contrast and look at the differences between the different types of snakes and turtles that we have. So let's first start out by a thank you. I need to thank the Friends of Hammonasset. They've been fantastic in supporting the Nature Center while it's closed. We're not getting the money through donations that we usually get that help to feed the animals. Actually, it does all the feeding of the animals. So our Friends group is paying to feed and care for our animals. So a big shout out to the Friends of Hammonasset and to the Connecticut DEEP, because without them, none of this would be happening. This is a deep facility, so I want to make sure everybody knows where this program is coming from. So I am at Hammonasset Beach State Park in Madison, Connecticut, and why don't we get right into what makes a reptile a reptile? So there are a few things that we really need to focus on. The first thing is reptiles are covered with scales, okay? We have skin and hair. Reptiles covered with scales, okay? Another major thing that makes them unique, and they all have in common, is that they are ectothermic. And what that means is they do not produce their own internal heat the way we do. They produce their heat or retrieve their heat from an external source, and that's how they maintain their temperature, okay? Those are the two most important things to remember about reptiles as we go through. Also, most reptiles lay eggs, but in nature there are always exceptions, and there are a lot of exceptions in the reptile world as to reptiles that don't lay eggs, okay? All right. Now, there are four major groups of reptiles around the world: crocodiles and alligators, lizards, snakes, and turtles. We don't have any crocodiles or alligators in Connecticut, which is very disappointing to me. I would love to be able to go out and see wild crocodiles and alligators, but not in Connecticut. Lizards, we have one. We have a five-line skink. It's an endangered species. It's not really found in my area of Connecticut. It's found in the northwest corner of the state, and it's really hard to find, even in the northwest corner. So that's why it's listed as an endangered species. Then we've got turtles, which I'm sure most of you have seen a turtle at some point in your life, either crossing a road or sitting on a log or something like that. And then, of course, there are snakes. And that's the one that many people are afraid of. But hopefully, after this program, you'll realize there's a little less to be afraid of when it comes to snakes than what you thought right now or what you're thinking right now. All right, are we ready to take a look at some of our animals? So I've got over here a turtle, and this is a brackish water turtle, which means it lives in salty water. It's not salt water like the ocean. It's a mix of fresh and salt water. But these Diamondback terrapins are found right here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but right through the trees here is the Hammonasset River. And these will swim around in there. They will come into the salt marshes during high tide when the water's deep enough for them to swim in. And then they'll go back out into the more open water. So I'm going to get out of the picture so it focuses on the turtle. And I want you to take a look at the head. So this is an unusual color pattern for these turtles. Usually they're gray with spots. In this case, it's really white with sort of leopard stripes. Look at how cool that is. It's almost like a zebra on its head. So a little bit different than the natural color that we typically find these in. Now, this happens a lot because many of these turtles were released into the wild after they were banned from having them as pets any longer, or actually to sell or trade them. But This one was raised in captivity. Somebody found it when it was a little tiny hatchling, probably the size of a quarter. They kept it in captivity, and you can see there's a little sort of a checkery pattern going on. Ooh, it's opening its mouth. Look at that. I don't know if you saw that. So there's sort of a crackle pattern on the back of its shell. It should be smooth. And that is from being raised in captivity. Either it wasn't getting the right food or maybe not enough UV light to help it metabolize its nutrients. But it causes the turtle to grow a little bit differently. Now, turtles are omnivores, very different from snakes. And because this is an omnivore and it lives in brackish water, it eats many of the same things that people like to eat. It loves crabs, shrimp. It will also eat things like seaweed and other things that you can find in the water, like snails. But again, it has to be in brackish water. Now, we're going to compare this turtle to a freshwater turtle. The most common freshwater turtle in Connecticut is the painted turtle. Look at the bright colors on the sides, bright color on the head. That's how you know it's a painted turtle. It looks like someone painted it. So if you compare these two turtles, now this turtle is nowhere near full grown. You can expect this one to add 4 to 6 inches in length. This turtle's not full grown either, but you're only going to see about another inch or two to the length. So this brackish water turtle gets quite a bit larger than the freshwater turtle in this case. If you look, they both have big paddle-like feet. This one is much bigger. Look at the size of those paddles. Even though these turtles are almost the same size right now, this paddle 3 or 4 times the size of that paddle on that foot, that back foot. So these are fast swimmers. These are fast swimmers too. They say painted turtles can go as fast as Olympic swimmers, okay? So this is a very fast turtle. This is also a very fast turtle. They're very streamlined. Imagine that going right through the water very quickly to catch its food. So we talked about the food that this one eats. This turtle, because it lives in fresh water, it eats similar things. So it will eat fish, but will also eat frogs. It will eat insect larvae. It will eat that green slimy stuff on the bottom of a pond. Some aquatic plants as well, so algae and plants that it can find in fresh water. And it will eat worms and slugs and anything else that falls into the water. They are omnivores, so they will eat just about everything that it comes in contact with. So again, we'll put these side by side just for a minute. Second there. All right, and we're just move on to another freshwater. So now we've got 2 freshwater turtles. The painted turtle, very, very common. What's that turtle have on its back? Everyone always says polka dots. They're spots. Yes, they're polka dots, but this is a spotted turtle, okay? And this one is a girl, okay? This one's actually a girl too. And the other one was a girl too. So right now we've got lots of girl turtles. Let's talk about what makes it a girl turtle. With the painted turtle, the front claws are about the same length as the back claws. So that's how we know that this is a female painted turtle. The males, the front claws are twice as long, and the males don't get as big. This would be a very large male. Because it's a female, you can expect it to grow quite a bit bigger. If it were a male, it would not be growing any bigger than this. Actually, it would have a hard time reaching this size. This one, you can tell it's a girl because of the color of its mouth. If you look, I'll step out again. They have a light cream-colored mouth or a white mouth. So we know that this is a female spotted turtle. The males, it's more of a brown mouth, okay? Now, most of the time when you find a healthy spotted turtle, okay, we're going to put the painted down, the spots are going to be bright yellow. Again, our turtles, almost every one of them that we're going to look at today, they were raised in captivity from hatchlings. This turtle was born in captivity, captive bred, not with a licensed breeder, so it was handed over to a vet who then tried to find a home for it, and we were able to take it. But it never really got the bright yellow spots that it should have if it were living in the wild, getting all of those nutrients and natural sunlight and things like that. So, and actually I'm looking, notice the black spot there? That is unusual, okay? Usually that whole thing is going to be white. So it's got a little bit of a black mark on its chin there. But this is a female spotted turtle. Now, spotted turtles live in a very different environment from the painted turtle. Painted turtles, very fast swimmers. You can see they're very streamlined, great big paddle-like feet. Spotted turtles, almost no webbing on the feet, so not really a paddle there. These turtles live in shallow water. Even if it's in a big pond, it's going to be in the shallow end of that big pond. So you're not really going to see this turtle swimming out through open water or swimming very quickly. Most of the time, they choose to live in vernal pools or bodies of water that dry up completely in the summertime. And those vernal pools usually don't get very deep, so they don't need to be quick swimmers. Now, the things that they eat are things that you're going to find in vernal pools, and mostly that means amphibians. Either the frogs themselves or baby frogs like the tadpoles, or frogs' eggs or salamanders' eggs. And again, any plants that might be in the vernal pools. They will eat those as well. Okay. Now, I want to remind everybody that you can ask questions at any time. I've got some helpers in the back that'll read the questions off as they come. And I would also like it if you put in with your question or comment where you're messaging from. I always like to see how far these messages are coming from. So we're going to move on to one of my all-time favorite turtles, the Stinkpot. And it's not just because its name is Stinkpot that I like it, but we're going to compare these two. So this is a medium-sized spotted turtle. Okay, and remember, this is much smaller than the other turtles we've looked at. This one is a giant-size Stinkpot. Look at that. They're almost the same size. The spotted turtle is a little bit smaller, but this is a gigantic Stinkpot. Stinkpots, again, females get larger than the males. So this is a female. The male is only going to be 1.5 inches or 2 inches long. Males are really tiny for the shell. So males are small. The Stinkpot is called that because they can spray kind of like a skunk. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there are Canada geese flying over right now. Oh, that was so cool. They're in the perfect V. I hope you all got to see that. Okay, so the Stinkpots, they can smell really bad, kind of like a skunk, okay? And that is an excellent defense because a small turtle like this is not going to be able to have the big, harder shell that those other turtles have. Okay, we have a question?
Walton wants to know, do you breed animals at Meg's Point?
No, we do not breed any of the animals here at the Nature Center. Even if we have an animal that is endangered or threatened, there are a lot of special licenses that you need. It's not legal to breed these animals on your own. So we do not do that. We take in animals, usually, like I've been saying, these are animals that people find as babies. They bring them home and then they realize that maybe they shouldn't have them and they turn them over to us. Another question.
Susan would like to know, how long do they live from Michigan?
So different turtles live different lengths of time. So far, the turtle, this is probably the youngest of the turtles we have. These guys only live 20 years, would be an old one in the wild. The Diamondback terrapins live the longest so far. They can get to be about 30. And then the last turtle we look at lives quite a bit longer. The box turtles can live to be 60 or even 100 years old. So very cool. Okay, let's get back to the Stinkpot. again, it is a musk turtle, which means it sprays like a skunk. Excellent defense. If you notice, this turtle is missing its left front foot. Something, this is what we think happened. This one came from the wild. We think something bit it. And the turtle musked and smelled really bad. So whatever bit onto it, let it go, said, "Ooh, that tasted bad," and let the turtle escape, thankfully, for the turtle. Now, it probably could have lived in the wild, but somebody found it and thought that a three-legged turtle was not going to be able to survive, so they took it in, and then we ended up with it. So that's what we think happened with this one. Another amazing thing about the Stinkpot. Now, I think it's absolutely fantastic that they can smell really bad, kind of like a skunk. But the thing that makes this turtle really special to me, and as far as I know, it's the only one in the whole world that climbs trees. They don't just climb up on a log like you've seen turtles sunning themselves. They will climb 16 feet up into trees. They've been found 16 feet into a tree, and they always climb out over water. And you wonder, well, why are they climbing out over water? If they're climbing a tree, why do they leave the water and then climb a tree up over the water? They cannot climb out of the tree. When it's time for them to climb down, they don't. They just drop off into the water. So if something scares them, they can drop into the water. Great defense, right? Well, I've been canoeing and had one of these, actually it's happened to me twice, drop out of a tree and land on my lap in a kayak, okay? It was a little male, really, really cool. Luckily, it didn't musk me. The first one that dropped out actually did musk in the canoe, which was awful. Okay, we've got another question.
Where does the stink come out of? The mouth, was a guess?
The stink comes out of the cloaca, which is the same place it goes to the bathroom from. Okay, so right back here. And it is sort of a clear, liquidy, but it radiates a smell. And when you get it on your hands, it doesn't just wash off. When we first got this turtle, it musked every time we did a program. So I was usually getting musked once or twice a day by this turtle when we first got her. But she's pretty comfortable now, not musking. That's, which I'm glad of, because I don't want to smell her when I'm eating my dinner tonight. Okay, a lot of people get these confused with snapping turtles because they do have sort of a hooked beak. Okay, I don't want to get too close because she will bite. Any of the turtles have the capability of biting, so you need to watch out for that. All right, let's move on.
We have one more question.
All right, we have another question. Go.
When would a Stinkpot spray?
They spray when they're scared. So if something startles them, if something grabs them, that's when they're going to spray. All right?
Does that mean it's not scared right then?
It is not scared of me, no. Not anymore. When I first got it, it was scared of me. But now it's very comfortable being handled. We've had that turtle now not 10 years, at least 10 years. That turtle has been doing programs. So she's very used to being handled. Oh, and you can tell that one is a female because of the size. It's very large for a Stinkpot. Okay, I have one more turtle to look at. This is the box turtle. This one is absolutely amazing. Box turtles have this line right here. This is a hinge. So this turtle can go inside. It can pull its legs and its head. He doesn't want to because he's not scared of me. Look at that. I can. No, he doesn't want to go in. So he can pull himself in. He can close. See how that moves? He can close that door. He can close this door. And he seals himself in. Nothing can get him except maybe a bear. But if he's walking across the road and a car comes at him, what's he going to do? Is he going to run away? No, he's super slow. He's going to go inside of his shell, and then he's going to get hit by a car, which is what happened to him. Many times people don't see them or they don't realize what it is. Just looks like a rock in the road. I don't know why you would want to hit a rock in the road, but people hit these turtles all the time. He was hit by a car getting close to 25 years ago now, I think. And that's a little bit of the damage that's left from that injury. It takes a very long time for them to heal from some of these major wounds. so he was not able to go back into the wild. Do we have another question? Okay.
No.
So this turtle likes to eat lots of different things. So we talked about what the aquatic turtles like to eat. This turtle, because it lives on land, has a very different diet. It is an omnivore, so it's going to eat plants or animals. It lives on land. It walks really slowly. It's not a fast walker. So what it likes to eat, very, very simple. Anything that moves slower than he does. So he will eat slugs, snails, caterpillars, worms. He'll eat bark and roots and leaves and flowers, fruits and vegetables. They love berries, strawberries, blueberries. They love those. They could eat mushrooms that would make us sick. And if they found something dead in the forest, like a dead bird or a squirrel that's rotting in the woods, they're going to eat that too. So when you talk about an animal with a cast iron stomach that can eat anything, this is definitely one of those animals. Okay, we have a question.
Gina from Monroe says, do they have names?
So the turtles do have names. However, we really don't like people thinking of these turtles as pets. These are wild animals. They belong in the wild. For one reason or another, these animals are not able to be in the wild. But we usually do not use their names during a program because we don't want you to think of them like a pet. Now, we will do an exception for this one. This guy is Gandalf. And Gandalf has been at the Nature Center since we opened our new building, so he's been with us for 4 years. Before this turtle, we had Merlin. For 35 years, he was doing programs in and around the Nature Center. Not just here, he was at other places. So he was a real showstopper. But these turtles are absolutely amazing. They've got great personalities. You can see he likes to look at me. He's wondering what I'm up to and why he's being held right now. Usually when he gets picked up and moved, it means he's going to be doing a program. And usually there are lots of people in front of him, so maybe he's wondering why there's nobody here today. All right, and these turtles can live 60 to 100 years. They live even longer in captivity than they do in the wild, so they could live over 100 years in captivity. So we hope to have him a very long time. Now, with turtles, you can tell the age of a turtle by their shell, up until a certain point. So let's start out with that. If you look on the turtle's shell, let's hope that you guys can see this. There are some little grooves, almost rings, like the rings of a tree. If you count those rings, you can get a rough approximation of how old the turtle is. But that only works up until about the time is about the turtle's about 30 to 35 years old. And then those rings, you can see these are already starting to wear off, or they're so tight together you can't count them any longer. But about 35, you can tell how old a turtle is by counting those rings. Okay, we're ready to put him down, which means it's time to move on to snakes. Now, there are actually 8 different kinds of turtles that we have in Connecticut. We only looked at 5 of them. The ones that we didn't look at are the bog turtle, the snapping turtle, and the wood turtle. So wood turtles and bog turtles are actually listed species, along with the spotted turtle and the box turtle. Those are both listed as well. And then the snapping turtle, very, very common, but unfortunately right now, I don't have one. But there are 2 of them that are deemed non-releasable that we should be getting pretty soon. So I'm very excited about that. Now, snakes, we have 8 different kinds of snakes in Connecticut. And before we move on to the snakes, do we have a question?
There was one more question about location. So if you wanted to mention that, where they're found.
Where each of the turtles are found?
The territories that they're found in.
So the box turtle is going to be in wooded areas. Any wooded area or a field. They like fields and wooded areas, which is pretty much any land body around Connecticut. They won't be up in the rocky areas, but anywhere else. That's one of the reasons that they are listed, is because when they're out in a farmer's field and they're plowing the field or mowing or harvesting, then they end up clipping these turtles. The stinkpot and the painted turtle, almost any body of water that's big enough in Connecticut, you can find those freshwater. The stinkpot the spotted turtle would be in those shallow vernal pools, and shallow ends of bigger ponds or shallow water. The diamondback terrapin is going to be in brackish water. And then the other turtles, the snapping turtle and the wood turtle, are both found in rivers. The snapping turtle can be in ponds and even in some brackish water. The bog turtle is pretty rare. It's in really boggy areas, which we don't have a lot of in Connecticut, which attributes to the fact that it is listed as an endangered species. Okay, now we're going to talk about snakes. Now, I know lots of people get really nervous when we start to mention snakes, or if you see a snake, your heart beats faster, you get a little nervous. And that happens to me a little bit too. I think I get more excited than nervous, but snakes are surprising. Sometimes when you least expect it, boom, there's an animal there, and it will make you jump sometimes. We're going to start out looking at the most common type of snake in Connecticut. I should say one of the most common, because there is another one that's very common as well. But this is probably the most recognizable snake in Connecticut. Now, we do keep them in the pillowcases so that they're calm when they come out, but this snake is fairly new to us and is a little bit fidgety. So here we have a garter snake. Now, garter snakes can be striped, they can be checkered, or they can have a combination like this one. It has stripes and checkers. Okay, these snakes don't get very large. About 3 feet is what the book says. I don't know if I've ever seen a 3-foot garter snake. This is a good size. This is probably a typical size that you're going to see. And this snake is a little bit thick. Okay, it might have babies. So remember, with the beginning, we said reptiles lay eggs. This is one of those exceptions. These snakes bear live young. They do not lay eggs. So that's why it might actually, that might be why it's so thick. And I'm not sure how much it's eating, but it seems a little heavy to me. So we might have babies in a little while. Now, one of the things I want you to look at that tongue coming out. This snake is really cool because it has a double colored tongue. It's a red tongue with black tips, which is just really cool. And what it's doing is it is tasting the air. It is smelling with its tongue. So that's why their tongues, they're going to go a lot. They are curious. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what I am, if there's food around, if there's a predator around. It needs to track all of those things, and using that tongue to smell is how it's able to do that. Now, they do have a limited sense of smell. They can still take air in through their nostrils and smell that way, but typically their breathing occurs through a tube at the bottom of their mouth. It's almost like a straw that goes out, and that's because these eat their food whole and alive. These are live feeders. They're going to grab their food and swallow it whole. Typically, what the garter snakes eat are worms, fish, and frogs. So, and the animal can't be more than 3 times the size of their head, or it won't be able to fit in its mouth. But they can fit things 3 times the size of their heads in their mouth. And we'll talk about that with one of the other snakes. Now, garter snakes do have teeth. They're a small snake. All snakes have teeth, so that means they have the capability of biting. But many of the small ones, they're not going to, because they know their teeth are too small to break the skin. They're not going to be able to scare me or threaten me off with their teeth. So what these snakes do is they musk, just like the stinkpot. So if you think of it this way, imagine that I have some cookies and I give you a cookie and you bite into your cookie and it tastes the way a skunk smells. You would probably never take a cookie from me again because I gave you a nasty tasting cookie. That same thing happens with the snake. If an animal comes along that wants to try and eat this snake or the stinkpot, like a fox, let's use a fox as an example. Fox comes along, picks up the snake. Snake musks, smells really bad, tastes even worse. Think that fox is going to try and eat it? No. He's going to spit it out and move on, and I just got musked. So it's going to move on and leave that snake alone and probably will not try and eat that kind of snake ever again. Okay? So I'm going to put this one back. And the musk is, again, like the stinkpot, sort of a clear liquid. It's different from when they go to the bathroom. Smells a bit stronger. But we'll put this guy back up. Actually, I think this is a girl. So this girl back up and move on to another live feeder. Now, this snake we've had for a very, very long time. This is the longest snake that I've had. And it is not that long. It is starting to get, it has a bit of a problem. So it's got a growth on its back, sort of a tumor. Let's get this guy out. All right, this is a really cool snake. This is the milk snake, okay? And it does have that bump there. Again, this is an old snake. We've had this snake at least 18 years. Milk snakes come in two different colors. They can be white and, if you look here, white and red, where this one is brown and gray. So this is the duller color variety. This is a good size. They can get larger. This one's a male, and the female could get a little bit larger. But again, this is going to be sometimes a live feeder, and sometimes it's actually going to constrict its prey. So this is one of those snakes that can do either or. If it is eating something like a baby mouse, which doesn't have any teeth or claws, it will just grab them and swallow them whole. If it's eating an adult mouse, it will constrict it and kill it and then eat. And we'll talk about constricting with another one of our snakes. So this snake is in the king snake family, which means that it will also eat other snakes. Now, I know some of you out there knew that there are snakes that eat other snakes, and they usually have the word king in their name. So this is a king snake, and it can eat other snakes. If it's eating another snake, it may not constrict it. It may just grab it and swallow it whole. All right. So why is it called a milk snake if it's in the king snake family? The name milk snake came from farmers. Farmers would go into the barn. They'd go to milk their cows. Back years ago, cows didn't produce the same amount of milk every day, sometimes more, sometimes less. If the farmer went to milk the cow and there wasn't a lot of milk, farmer would continue working around the barn. If it saw the snake, it said, I know what happened. That snake must have gone and drank the milk out of my cow. So they started calling it a milk snake. Now, we think that is like super silly, right? Imagine this little snake going over to a great big cow, biting onto it and trying to suck the milk out. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to milk a cow. It's not easy to get the milk out. The snake wouldn't have a very easy time. And those teeth probably wouldn't be too comfortable for the cow, so the cow wouldn't like it. So not really a very good theory, but that's what farmers thought. So they started calling it the milk snake. What does it actually eat that's in a barn? Are the mice and sometimes the other snakes. All right. Do we have any questions on snakes so far?
Just an overall question, how did you get the animals you have there and were they injured?
So how do we get the animals? Most of them people bring to us, and most of them are injured. Or, like in the case of this one, it was a captive bred snake. I believe this one came from a licensed breeder, and then one of our friends that knew the breeder got us one for an exhibit animal. So that's how we ended up with that one. Sometimes people have had them in captivity and they don't want them anymore. So one of the things I'm going to say about snakes, many times people will buy snakes for their children because, you know, what 9-year-old doesn't want a snake? And then that 9-year-old grows up and goes off to college, and the parents realize that they've got 10 more years with a snake, and they didn't really want it that much in the first place, so they're looking for someone else to take it. So we do get a lot of snakes that way as well. All right, so this is the one I started to go into earlier. Now, this snake is not typically black. This is a northern water snake. They usually have a pattern of gray and rusty brown and black, really beautiful colors. But this one, it was actually born here at the Nature Center, and it was pure black. So we decided that this is one of the ones we kept. It had 48 brothers and sisters, and we released, I think all but 3 of them ended up being released. So the northern water snake is typically known as an aggressive snake. They tend to bite more than some of the other snakes. But look at the size of this snake's head. And I don't know if you can see the scales are rough. So they're called keeled scales on this snake. And this snake likes to eat fish and frogs. So it's a northern water snake, and it gets its food around the water. It will not be wet all the time. It doesn't live in the water. If it is in the water all the time, it could get issues with its scales. So if the snake stays wet all the time, it can get really sick, and it will actually get a fungus that starts to grow on its back, which is not good. So we mentioned earlier that snakes can eat things 3 times the size of their heads. So the way it's able to do that, look at that snake, look at the size of its head. It could swallow a fish probably about that big around, okay? It could swallow a pretty good sized fish. The way they're able to do that, everybody, we're going to do a snake eating exercise. Everyone open your mouth as wide as you can, okay? I can't open mine very wide, but usually we can open our mouths about 90 degrees. Okay, that's about what we can open our mouths. Snakes have an articulated jaw. They don't dislocate their jaw. It's sort of like being double jointed, which means they can extend their jaw straight up and down. Okay, I can't even bend my fingers. Straight up and down. Also, so that gets their mouth really wide. Also, if you feel your lower jaw is attached, each side, it's stitched together right there. It's called stitching. These 2 sides of the jaw are attached right there. The snake, it's separate. So the jaw drops down and apart, and then it can swallow something 3 times the size of their heads, which means if you could eat the way a snake can, you would be able to swallow a watermelon that is 3 of your heads around in 1 bite. Okay, imagine that. Now that's why we mentioned earlier they have an extended throat tube right here. That they need because when they're swallowing something that big, they're not able to breathe through their mouth. They breathe through that tube that is separate. So they're able to swallow something 3 times the size of their heads. That is pretty incredible, if you ask me. I don't know if I would even attempt to swallow something 3 times the size of my head, even if I could. Okay, so again, the water snakes, this is a live feeder. They just grab those fish, those frogs, they grab them, and they just start swallowing them. They want to swallow them head first. The scales on a fish, if you try to swallow it backwards, the scales would cause resistance. The legs of the frog, if you try to swallow it backwards, the legs would cause resistance. Your arms and legs, if you stand there, your arms and legs naturally go to the back. So if you start from the head, they just fold right up as they're swallowed. So it's much easier for a snake to swallow something head first. If the snake is really large, I've seen this snake here eat a fish sideways, but it's a small fish, and it could just easily eat that fish. All right, we're not getting any questions, so we're going to move on.
We do have one question. Allison was wondering how the pigeon is from this morning.
Oh, so the last I heard, the pigeon that we did the program on this morning went to a rehabilitator. So we haven't heard an update beyond that. So hopefully we'll hear some good news about it at some point. All right, let's take a second here. I'm sure many of you have found these in your yard. Snake skin. Okay, now snakes shed their skin. Turtles also shed. Turtles shed their scales, one scale at a time. Snakes shed their skin, all of their skin at one time, from the tip of their nose to the tip of their tail. Okay, now you can shed your skin. Okay, if you take your hands and put them together, you rub your hands, you have to rub them fast and make it hot. When it gets hot, you can look, can you see any skin? Usually not. If you do see something, it's probably just dirt that was on your skin. But you just shed some skin. Tiny pieces, it's like dust in the air. Snakes shed their skin, all their skin, from the tip of their nose to the tip of their tail, including the skin that covers the eye. I don't know if you can see that, that is an eye cover, an eye cap. Okay? They can't close their eyes. They cannot blink. So that means when it's time to shed, they have to shed that eye cap as well. Okay? Also, when you find a snake shed in your yard, the snake isn't as long as the shed. It stretches a little bit as they're shedding. So this snake here, that's probably about a 5-foot snake's shed. This is probably a 4.5-foot snake. So they do stretch out a little bit. Okay, we have some questions.
Going back to the water snake, how often does it eat?
So our snakes, we feed a little more often than they would eat in the wild. Our snakes eat twice a week. Our water snakes do. Our other snakes eat about once a week. But we're going to talk about how long snakes can go without eating. In the wild, a snake, it may eat once a month. Okay. So this is a great snake to talk about how long they can go without eating. This is the rat snake. Used to be called the black rat snake. They changed the name to the eastern rat snake because in some places they're not black. You go to Louisiana and they're sort of gray, and down in Florida they have them that are yellow, which I haven't seen one in a very long time. I kind of wish I had one of those. They're really cool color. Okay, so this is the longest snake in North America. They can get 8 feet long. This is our really true tree climbing snake that we have in Connecticut. These snakes love to climb trees. If you see a snake in a tree in Connecticut, chances are it's the rat snake. They're found on the whole East Coast, from the Mississippi right to the coast, and I think a few states west of the Mississippi, but all up and down, all over the East Coast, you can find these, even up in the little north in New England as well. So these snakes can go for a pretty long time without eating. Now, most of you probably could not make it 24 hours, one whole day, without saying, I'm hungry, okay? If you didn't eat for 24 hours, I pretty much guarantee, unless you're sick, you would be saying, I'm hungry. The snake could go 24 hours easily. It could go a week easily. It could go a month. This snake could go 9 or 10 months easily without eating, okay? The longest that a snake has ever gone without eating that we know of in captivity was 2.5 years. That was about a 21-foot Burmese python at the San Diego Zoo. And then it started eating again. For 2.5 years, it refused food. Then it started eating again. The last I knew, it was still alive at the San Diego Zoo. So if you're ever in San Diego, you should stop by and visit that snake. Really incredible. Now, that's a big snake. 21 feet means it could eat big things like sheep or pigs or maybe a small deer. So that's why they're able to go for a very long time without eating. I had one of these snakes, and it went for about 9 or 10 months without eating. And then all of a sudden, it decided it was hungry. And it ate 21 mice in about 1 hour. Less than a week later, it ate 19 more mice. So that snake was able to eat all of those mice in 1 week. Okay, that's 40 mice in 1 week. That's amazing. These snakes, if they find a nest full of mice, they're going to eat all the mice. They're going to eat both of the parents. They're going to eat the cousins. They're going to eat the babies. They're eating the whole nest of mice, every mouse that they could catch. Now, we said they climb trees. One of their primary foods are birds. So that's why you find them climbing up into trees. They will eat baby birds and eggs. So these are nest raiders. And it's a really good thing that they do that. That gives them a niche that none of the other snakes in Connecticut really go for. So these snakes have a whole food source, and they don't have to compete with other snakes to get it. This snake is being very cooperative right now. It's usually a bit more fidgety than this. We have a question?
Yes. Is there something special about their belly?
So, yes, their bellies are very special. If you look at the back, the scales are small and diamond-shaped. If you look at the belly, the scales are wide and rectangular with a little point at the end. Those belly scales allow the snake to climb trees. And I'm probably not going to be able to get under the scales. They're really super smooth, but it can use those scales. It will move them out and hook onto the tree as it climbs up. So that makes their belly scales very special. Their scales, all the snakes have really smooth bellies because they're moving around on their belly, and they don't want to create more friction because that friction causes you to wear away your scales over time. So super smooth, silky. And that's one of the reasons. So I didn't talk about this yet. Many people look at a snake and they think, ooh, it's slimy and disgusting. They're not wet at all. They're completely dry. They are so smooth, it looks like they're wet. But this snake is completely dry. Any other questions? So again, I mentioned there are lots of snakes that we have in Connecticut. We actually have 14 different kinds of snakes in Connecticut. And, oh, I do have one more snake to look at. Yes, a question.
Yeah, this is kind of a good question. Do their tails mimic rattlers at times?
That is an excellent question.
And I missed the name.
And what's the name of that one you just showed?
This was the eastern rat snake. That's an excellent question. Now, usually I do this snake first, and I'm all thrown off because we have to do it last because the cameras are going to have to get moved. But this is a great snake to show what their tails are capable of doing. So, the question was, do snakes use their tails to mimic? And the answer is that when a snake gets nervous, it's going to twitch its tail. All right. And can we see it? It's under the log, isn't it? All right, so this is a copperhead. The copperhead is one of the 2 venomous snakes in Connecticut. And the other venomous snake is the rattlesnake. So we're going to see if we can. Anybody see it? Can you guys see it?
Yep.
right, so there are two venomous snakes in Connecticut, the copperhead and the timber rattlesnake. So the timber rattlesnake is endangered. It is also very rare in Connecticut. They are listed as an endangered species, probably only about 300 of them left in the state of Connecticut. The copperhead is much more common. They are found usually in rocky ledge areas, and they are this coppery color. So if you see coppery color on a snake, but no black, notice it goes dark copper, light color, but it's not black anywhere. That is a copperhead. Now they do have diamond-shaped heads, and the real way that you can tell, the venomous snakes in Connecticut have cat-like pupils. The other snakes in Connecticut have round pupils. I do not recommend using that as a way to identify it, because if you're close enough to see the pupil of the snake's eye, you are too close to the snake, okay? Normally, I would not be this close to the snake, but now the question was, do they mimic rattlesnakes? All snakes, when they get nervous, they twitch their tails, and their tails will start to twitch. If it's in leaves, it will actually sound like a rattlesnake. That's actually why rattlesnake's tail works, why their rattle works. They are not rattling their tail to rattle their rattle. They're rattling to twitch and say that they're nervous or scared. The only reason that a venomous snake is going to bite a person is if it's scared of you. So you're a predator to them. If you approach them, maybe you don't see it and you step on it, or you're poking it with a stick or something. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, the way that most people get bitten is they're sort of asking for it because they're poking it or trying to pick it up with a stick or something like that, and then they end up getting bitten. Question.
Rebecca asks, how long can they live?
The copperhead, I believe, can live 30 years in captivity. No, 20. They live 20 years in captivity. So you got to figure it's going to be less than 14 years in the wild. And the venom passes through two hollow fangs. So both of the venomous snakes that we have hollow fangs that they use to inject the venom into their prey. Another question.
Sandy asks, has Ranger Russ ever been bitten by a copperhead?
I have never been bitten by a venomous snake, okay? Any venomous snakes. And I don't really want to give them the opportunity.
And one more question. Do we have rattlesnakes in Connecticut, in like our area, and had them?
So there are a few places with rattlesnakes in Connecticut, and Glastonbury, Portland, those are two of the areas. Around here, Madison area, Clinton, Killingworth, probably no rattlesnakes. Once in a while you get a bizarre sighting of a rattlesnake, but it's usually one that somebody caught and moved to that location. The DEP knows where the few remaining rattlesnakes dens are. They are protected, so you cannot bother a rattlesnake. If you are changing that snake's behavior, then you're violating the law. So you want to make sure that you do not, any endangered species, that you are not changing their behavior. Another question.
How many scales can snakes have?
That's a good question. I've never attempted to count the scales. I did read one time, and I don't remember what snake it was, had 300 scales, but it wasn't a large snake, so I'm going to say that they could probably have a lot more than 300 scales.
One more question. Does Glastonbury have rattlesnakes?
Yeah, that's one of the places where the dens are known, is Glastonbury.
And
Okay.
Berna says, close the box.
Who says that?
Berna.
That's my mother. Okay, so we're going to, and notice, we keep this box padlocked for a very good reason. I am the only one that has access to the venomous snake. Now, the two venomous snakes we have in Connecticut have a combination of toxins. They have a hemotoxin with a bit of neurotoxin in it. Hemotoxin attacks your blood cells and your muscle tissue, and it will cause cell walls to break down, and neurotoxin causes pain. So both of these have a little bit of a combination of the two. So some of the snakes that we didn't talk about, and they're mostly the smaller snakes that we have in Connecticut. We've got ringneck snakes, red-bellied snakes, brown snakes, green snakes. All of those snakes don't get much bigger than 9 inches. Oh, and the worm snake, not much bigger than about 9 inches or so. So they're around, a little bit longer than a pencil. Those snakes mostly are eating small things and worms, like bugs and worms. All right, do we have any other questions? I think we're ready to wrap up. So this was the second of our lecture series, our Friday evening lecture series. Next week at 6:30, we're doing amphibians. The name of the program is Amphibian Election. So you're going to get to vote and choose the coolest amphibian that we have in Connecticut, or at least the coolest one that I'm going to be talking about. It looks like we have a question.
Yeah, we do have a question. Joan asks, we have a black snake living under our lilac bush. He's so pretty right now, but right now he's on the walkway. Can we move him back to the woodshed where he usually is?
Absolutely. He's going to be moving around. Their range is large. If it's your yard, his range is larger than your yard. But yes, you can move them. There are a few ways that people can do it. I would just grab it and pick it up and move it. I take the chance of getting bitten. You can put your arm in a pillowcase, grab it, move it. Lots of ways. Careful when you do it, though, because some people try and use a rake or something. You don't want to injure the snake. All right, so again, next Friday, 6:30, we're going to have amphibian election. The following Friday, very special program, possums. We're going to have live possums on the air. They're not going to be here. We're going to do a join in with the possums, and you're going to get to see. All right, I'm just really excited about possums. So let's move on. You can see me do these programs Tuesday through Friday at 11 o'clock on Facebook Live. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need 1,000 subscribers so that we can start doing YouTube, mobile YouTube. Continue to like us and follow us on Facebook. And if you would like to see all of the 100 programs, I don't even know how many I've done, you can go to megspointnaturecenter.org's Virtual Learning Center. Lots of additional information in addition to the videos. So I want to thank everybody. I wish that I could be doing this program for a live audience, but we're making the best of it, what we have. And I think we've got a couple of comments. Or
You need more pillowcases.
From Sandy.
I think we're good with pillowcases. Thank you, though. Any other things? All right. Actually, we do have a wish list online. So if you go to how you can help on our website, take a look at our wish list. You may be able to help us out by bringing us some things. I think we need to update the wish list to include the sanitary wipes and the hand sanitizer and things like that. But thank you all for watching this evening, and I will see you Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Until then, this is Ranger Russ signing off.